Picture this. You're 34 years old. You're sitting at your kitchen table at 11 o'clock at night, Zillow open on your phone, a calculator next to it, and you're running the numbers for maybe the 15th time, hoping that somehow the math will be different than it was yesterday. You've got a decent job, a real income. You went to college like they told you to. You got the degree like they told you to. You built a career like they told you to. And you still cannot afford to buy a home in the city you live in. Not even close. And the truly wild part, the part that keeps you up at night, is that you're not broke, you're not irresponsible, you're just a normal person in a country that made you a promise it can no longer keep. My name is Nico, and today we're going to do something that I think is genuinely overdue. We're going to look honestly at why the traditional American dream has become mathematically out of reach for most people on a single median income, and more importantly, what the new realistic paths actually look like. Because I'm not just here to depress you. I want to show you the actual math, walk you through what changed and when, and give you a real framework for building the thing you actually want, even if it looks a little different than what you were sold. If you're the kind of person who appreciates honest, numbers-driven conversations about money, hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. So let's set the scene properly. The American dream, in its classic postcard version, has a very specific checklist. Home ownership, a car or two in the driveway, a family if you want one, maybe you put your kids through college, you retire comfortably somewhere in your mid-60s, and there's a little left over for the occasional vacation. For decades, that checklist wasn't easy, but it was genuinely reachable for a working middle-class household. In 1970, the median home price in the United States was roughly $23,000. The median household income was about $9,800. That home price to income ratio was about 2.3 to 1. Fast forward to today, and the median home price is sitting around $420,000. The median household income is approximately $80,000. That ratio is now 5.25 to 1 nationally. In cities like Los Angeles, Denver, Austin, Miami, or Seattle, you're looking at ratios of 8, 10, sometimes 12 to 1. The same goal, dramatically different math, and nobody updated the brochure. Here's the thing, though. It's not just housing. Every single component of the traditional dream has inflated at a pace that wages simply haven't matched. A new car in 1975 cost around $4,950, adjusted purely for general inflation that should be roughly $27,000 today. The actual average transaction price for a new vehicle in 2024? Over $48,000. Healthcare costs have grown nearly 4 times faster than wages over the past 3 decades. College tuition has increased more than 1,200% since 1980. And childcare? This one is absolutely staggering. Childcare in many metro areas now runs between $1,500 and $3,000 per child. The math is brutal, and most people are trying to solve a 2024 problem with a 1985 framework. That's not a personal failing, that's a structural mismatch. Let me introduce you to Marcus and Jess. They're a couple in their early 30s living in a mid-sized American city. Not New York, not San Francisco, somewhere more quote-unquote affordable, like Nashville or Austin or Denver. Marcus is an accountant making $72,000 a year. Jess is a teacher bringing in $52,000. Combined gross income, $124,000. After taxes, health insurance premiums, and retirement contributions, they take home roughly $7,800 a month. And on paper, that sounds genuinely solid. That sounds like a household that should absolutely be living the dream. So let's run the actual numbers. Rent for a decent 2-bedroom apartment in their city, $2,100 a month, and that's not even a nice part of town. 2 car payments, because public transit is essentially non-existent where they live, $1,050 combined. Auto insurance for both vehicles, $280. Groceries for a family of 3, $650. Utilities, phone, internet, $350. Student loans, because they both went to college exactly like they were told, $680 combined. And here's the one that hits hardest. childcare for their 2-year-old, $1,400 a month. Out-of-pocket health costs beyond premiums, another $420 on a lean month. Add that all up, and Marcus and Jess are at roughly $6,930 a month in fixed and semi-fixed expenses. That leaves $870 for gas, eating out once or twice, birthday gifts, clothing, a haircut, a dentist appointment, any kind of emergency, and saving for a future. And we haven't talked about retirement. We haven't talked about a down payment. We haven't talked about anything resembling a buffer. A $124,000 a year household essentially running at break even. That is not a spending problem. That is a structural math problem. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. What does home ownership actually look like for Marcus and Jess? Their city's median home price is $475,000. To put down the standard 20% and avoid PMI, they need $95,000 saved. At their current rate of savings, roughly $400 a month on a good month, closer to zero on a bad one, it would take them nearly 20 years to accumulate that down payment. And by the time they get there, that same home likely costs $650,000 or more. They're running on a treadmill that keeps accelerating. And the cruelest part is that they're not doing anything wrong. They are executing the plan they were given. The plan is just broken. And here's the psychological layer that makes all of this so much harder to see clearly. Society hasn't updated the narrative. The cultural story around the American dream is still calibrated for 1985. Your parents' generation, or at least the parents of people who grew up solidly middle class, could genuinely buy a home in their late 20s, raise kids on one income, and retire with something resembling dignity. So when you're struggling, the story you've been handed is that it must be your fault. You must be undisciplined. You must have made wrong choices somewhere. The self-blame is almost reflexive, and it's one of the most expensive mental traps there is, because it keeps people focused on blaming themselves rather than rethinking the map. A 2023 survey from Empower found that nearly 40% of Americans who appear financially successful are actually living paycheck to paycheck, one major expense away from serious trouble, while projecting an image of stability and abundance. The performance of the dream is real. The math behind it for a lot of people is not. The social comparison piece makes this even worse. You're watching people on Instagram who seem to have the house, the cars, the kids and activities, the vacations, and your brain fills in the gap with shame. What did they figure out that I haven't? But what you're usually seeing is either a higher household income than yours, significant family help, or a very aggressively leveraged balance sheet dressed up in good lighting. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel, and it's costing you the mental clarity you actually need to make good decisions. Now, I know some of you are already thinking, Nico, you're being dramatic. I know people who bought homes in their late 20s. I know people making it work. And you're right, some people are. But let's look honestly at how. Today, dual income is essentially non-negotiable for homeownership in most American cities, a massive structural shift from a generation ago. The so-called bank of mom and dad, family assistance with down payments, now factors into more than 30% of first-time home purchases, according to recent data from the National Association of Realtors. Geographic arbitrage, deliberately choosing to live somewhere with a dramatically lower cost of living, often far from where you grew up, is increasingly the realistic path. And in some cases, people are genuinely earning significantly above the median through high-demand skills or fields. These aren't moral victories over laziness. These are adaptations to a system that moved the finish line and forgot to tell anyone. But here's the part that will genuinely blow your mind, and this is actually where the hope lives. Because what changes when you stop trying to execute the 1985 playbook in 2024 and start building a version of financial security that matches the actual landscape you're living in? Let me show you the math. Let's go back to Marcus and Jess. What if instead of grinding toward a $475,000 home in a high-cost city, they made one deliberate strategic choice? They relocated to a mid-sized city with a median home price of $280,000. Marcus renegotiated remote work. Jess found a comparable teaching position. Their rent, while saving, drops from $2,100 to $1,350. Childcare drops from $1,400 to $900.
Suddenly, without a raise, without a side hustle, without any dramatic lifestyle sacrifice, they have $1,250 of additional breathing room every single month. They direct $900 of that into Roth IRA contributions. They save a $475,000 size down payment in under 5 years instead of 20, and they still have money left to actually live. Now let me show you what that $900 a month actually becomes over time, because this is where the math gets genuinely emotional. Starting at age 32, investing $900 a month into a broad market index fund at a historically conservative 8% average annual return, by age 62, 30 years later, that account holds approximately $1.35 million. Not from a lucky trade, not from a startup, not from anything exotic, from one honest look at the numbers, followed by one deliberate decision that redirected money they were already spending into a compounding engine. That is the wealth gap right there. Not between the rich and the poor, but between the people using a 1985 map and the people willing to draw a new one. And if you're thinking, Nico, I can't just move, my family's here, my job is here, I genuinely understand that, and I'm not dismissing it. The specific move matters less than the mental framework underneath it. The principle holds regardless of the decision. Every dollar you stop hemorrhaging into a lifestyle built around an outdated standard is a dollar you can redirect towards something that actually compounds. Maybe it's not geography, maybe it's eliminating one car payment, or negotiating a 10% raise and investing the difference, or choosing a home that's $100,000 below what the bank approved you for. The calculation changes, the math rewards the honesty. Here's what this really comes down to. The American dream, in its original spirit, was never really about the house or the 2 cars. It was about security. It was about freedom. It was about giving your family a better life than the one you inherited. Those things are still worth chasing. What changed is that the default path, the standard issue middle-class roadmap, no longer leads there for most households. And continuing down that path out of cultural habit, or because it's what life was supposed to look like, is quietly one of the most expensive financial decisions a person can make. The people who actually build wealth in this era aren't the ones who blindly execute someone else's 40-year-old blueprint. They're the ones honest enough to look at the real numbers without flinching, flexible enough to redefine what success looks like, and patient enough to let time and compounding do what no salary increase ever could alone. You become the kind of person who calculates before committing, who questions defaults before adopting them, who understands that the gap between feeling financially trapped and actually building something real is often just one honest conversation with a calculator. The dream isn't dead, it's just been repriced. And honestly, the new version, the one built on clear math, intentional trade-offs, and real compounding, is more durable than the old one ever was. Run the numbers, question the defaults, and start building something designed for where we actually are, not where we used to be. I'm Nico. Thanks so much for watching this one all the way through. Drop a comment and let me know what part of this hit closest to home for you. I read every single comment, and I want to hear your story. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time. I put out videos like this every week. And as always, I'm not a certified financial advisor. Everything here is for educational purposes only, and please consult a qualified professional before making any major financial decisions. I'll see you in the next one.